So this is part, it's the end of the opening chapter of Essays on the Gita, where Aurobindo asks the questions of what use is the Gita, why should we all study it, Then he almost questions it, and then he writes 500 pages about it in the most profound way. But I have put here something else also, because he talks about, he says all in the Indian mind in general is synthetic, which means unifying, integrating. And so he says all the great teachings which have survived from the Veda to Upanishads and the Gita are synthetic teachings. That's why they shine so out, maybe even from other teachings which might not be so synthetic. They're more exclusive, more specialized on one aspect, less integrative. But that's why so much emphasis on Veda, Upanishad, and Bhagavad Gita. And
what does synthetic mean?
That's what I'm telling, integrating, a synthesis, you see. Right. Allowing, integrating many aspects, not being exclusive or specialized on one thing. To say it simple, yes. Binding together many strands into union, but not in an artificial way, you understand, in an organic way. It's not that they say, now we take this and this. Like integral yoga does not mean we do a little bit hatha yoga and a bit pranayama and a bit meditation and that will be the integral yoga. Aurobindo says that would take too much time. So you have to find a kind of a central force. That of course in the integral yoga finally becomes the yoga shakti also. But at the same time he always says, look, human beings are mental beings. They are called manisha, thinkers. So actually in our evolution, he says, we could start the yoga from the mind. The mind could be the means already to open to the higher consciousness. That would not neglect, and then don't forget how much he emphasizes the psychic. But so his emphasis is not on pranayama and asana and all that. He would not object to it, but he never encouraged it, because the thing is, if you do this systematic practice, it's easier than to do psychological yoga, and then you might get also in, I feel, this is my commentary, you might get into illusion, I'm doing yoga, right, I'm doing yoga, which you are doing, but it is not yet the integral yoga, or it is not, opening your consciousness for a process of transformation. Maybe you do it unconscious in a certain way, but there is a difference there. So there is always this aspect also, the mind and the devotion. Of course, in his yoga also, when he really defines the synthesis, it is the works, the karma. That's why he starts even with the Gita in the synthesis of yoga, because one shouldn't forget that basically, Avantika, you could say the synthesis of yoga is the unification of works, bhakti, and knowledge. But then, even then, in the synthesis, he's trying to give him another chapter at the end, which he never finished, the yoga of self-perfection. And there he takes again a different approach. But here I have added the human aspiration, because his conclusion in this chapter is he's also looking from the past to the future. You see. What is the use of, why should we study the Gita? Then, okay, why should we study the Veda or any scripture? And here I have put deliberately from the Life Divine. When he starts Life Divine, he calls it the human aspiration. So he says, in man there is that soul. However much there are the ages of materialism, and that soul will not give its full share, it will always emerge, because that is man's truth. There is that living soul in him. And then he quotes even these ideas of the French Revolution. People sacrifice their life for the sake of freedom and brotherhood. How is it? From where is that coming? That has nothing to do with survival and thing, even to sacrifice yourself for that. And there he starts with a verse from the Rig Veda, from the hymn, beautiful hymn to Usha the Dawn. It's a hymn with 18 verses from the book 1. So she follows the goal of those that are passing on beyond. She is the first in the eternal succession of the dawns that are coming. Usha widens, bringing out that which lives, awakening someone who was dead. What is her scope when she harmonizes with the dawns that shone out before and those that now must shine? She desires the ancient mornings and fulfills their light. Projecting forwards her illumination, she enters into communion with the rest that are to come. So the dawns of the past are repeated in the dawns of the future, but each one is also new, but anything new has to build on something which was there. And then we can go down now to the bottom para where I have started. There have been other syntheses. So who would like to read from there?
There have been other syntheses in the long history of Indian thought. We start with the Vedic synthesis of the psychological being of man in its highest flights and widest ranging of divine knowledge, power, joy, life and glory with the cosmic existence of the gods, pursued behind the symbols of the material universe into those superior planes which are hidden from the physical sense and the material mentality.
Can you get even just this sentence? You see what he says? So divine power, knowledge, power, joy, life and glory with the cosmic existence of the gods pursued behind the symbols of the material. But meaning they are there. We meet these symbols, but into those superior planes. And that I may add, when I was giving some seminars abroad among people, who are in the deeper Western tradition. Some of them, they are in the Kabbalah, which is the esoteric teaching of Christianity, which also looks at the imagery of the Bible in a totally different way. And all of them, wherever I went, to all the people in these different traditions, they always were impressed by this height and purity of the Vedic hymns. They immediately felt that. They always felt the uniqueness in the Veda. It is so sublime, and that's what Aurobindo says, no? So even when they use the material symbols of the cosmos, which are there, and they start with them, they go behind them, but where does he go? Aurobindo says, into those superior planes. So meaning they see this superiority also, and they don't see it in other teachings. They feel like that is really the uniqueness in the Veda, how deep it goes, how it goes to the essence and the purity of the powers. Sorry, now you finish.
The crown of this synthesis was in the experience of the Vedic rishis, something divine, transcendent and blissful, in whose unity the increasing soul of man and the eternal divine fullness of the cosmic Godheads meet perfectly and fulfill themselves.
So this itself is a very big summary of the Veda. But there will be more afterwards, you'll see.
The Upanishads take up this crowning experience of the earliest years and make it their starting point for high and a profound synthesis of spiritual knowledge. They draw together into a harmony,
a great harmony,
all that has been seen and experienced by the inspired and liberated knowers of the eternal thought of the eternal throughout a great and fruitful period of...
So here the question is, are they meant here, or does he mean the Vedic rishis? And they drew all of that together, because that would also mean then Vedanta, the kind of cream, the culmination of it. So what do you think? What does it mean here? They drew together into a great harmony all that had been seen and experienced by the inspired and liberated knowers of the eternal throughout a great... So does it mean the Upanishads collect that from the Upanishadic rishis, or even the Upanishadic rishis draw that from the Veda?
No, I think it means Upanishadic rishis draw it from the Veda.
It feels, because he says they take it as their starting point. No?
Yeah.
So, yes.
The Gita starts from this Vedantic synthesis, and upon the basis of its potential ideas, build another harmony of the three great means and powers: love, knowledge, and works, through which the soul of man can directly approach and cast itself into the eternal.
Yes.
There is yet another, the tantric, one which, though less subtle and spiritually profound, is even more bold and forceful than the synthesis of the Gita. for it seizes upon, even upon the obstacles to the spiritual life and compels them to become the means for a richer spiritual conquest that enables us to embrace the whole of life even in our divine scope as the Leela too of the divine. And in some directions it is more immediately rich and fruitful, for it brings forward into the foreground along with divine knowledge, divine works, and an enriched devotion of divine love. The secrets also of the Hatha and Raja Yogas, the use of the body and of mental ascesis for the opening up of the divine life on all its planes.
Maybe this would be the chakras. It could be the chakras. Which the Gita? Please go. To which the Gita?
To which the Gita gives only a passing and perfunctory attention.
About the pranayama maybe and the hatha yoga.
What's mental asceticism?
That is the tapasya, I would say. Yes. Yes. Usually the word austerity is maybe better than ascesis.
Moreover, it grabs at that idea of the divine perfectibility of man, possessed by the Vedic rishis, but thrown into the background by the intermediate ages, which is destined to fill so large a place in any future synthesis of human thought, experience and aspiration.
So that's quite strong. No? Then he still goes back again to the Veda. So he says even that there was something there which afterwards submerged. And then he goes on. There is no cut. This is just every paragraph of the chapter. Somebody else wants to read the next one? Yeah?
We of the coming days stand at the head of a new age of development, which must lead to such a new and large synthesis. We are not called upon to be orthodox Veda or any of the three schools or pathways, or to adhere to one of the
Theistic
religions, theistic religions of the past, or to entrench ourselves within the four corners of the teaching of the Gita. That would be to limit ourselves and to attempt to create our spiritual life out of the being, knowledge and nature of others, of the men of the past, instead of building it out of our own being and potentialities. We do not belong to the past dawns, but to the noons of the future. A mass of new material is flowing into us. We have not only to assimilate the influences of the great ascetic religions of India and of the world, and a recovered sense of meaning of Buddhism, but to take full account of the potential thought, limited revelations of modern knowledge and seeking, and beyond that, the remote and dateless past which seemed to be dead is returning upon us with an effulgence of many luminous secrets long lost to the consciousness of mankind, but now breaking out again from behind the wheel. All this points to a new, very rich, a very vast synthesis, a fresh and widely embracing harmonization of our gains in both an intellectual and a spiritual necessity of the future.
You want to finish?
Yeah. But just as the past syntheses have taken those which preceded them for their starting point, so also must that of the future, to be on firm ground, proceed from what the great bodies of realized spiritual thought and experience of the past have given. Among them, the Gita takes a most important place. Our object, then, in studying the Gita will not be a scholastic or academical scrutiny of its thought, nor to place its philosophy in the history of metaphysical speculation, nor shall we deal with it in the manner of the analytical dialectician. We approach it for health and light, and our aim must be to distinguish its essential and living message. That in it on which humanity has to seize for its perfection and its highest spiritual welfare.
So you could say the same thing of the Veda, although there is a slight difference. Of course, the Gita also has a beautiful mantric language, but you could say in the Veda there is still that mantra aspect, that you could even use the text itself still as a kind of awakening, the illumination of yourself. So you could even in that way integrate it in your sadhana, I think. But I think it's a very interesting thought. And in a way, first you say, but Aurobindo says we do not belong to the dawns of the past, and we should not build our own spiritual life on others. But at the same time, he will still go back. But we need that foundation. And I think that's also the unique thing, maybe that what you said, what was the problem, and with the tradition, it became conservative, Things got fixed, Then things become conventional, and then, as I say, you belong to this category and you there, the individual, finally, that which was its support in a certain period becomes also an obstacle. You feel like shadows because you are put in that category and not in that. And I feel that would be maybe we are much more now individualized, and you could say now that we have to transcend, or we have to given the freedom to transcend the system in which we grew up, the traditional energy. We can use it to our best, or even we can revise it, but then we have to go into our soul. That's what Aurobindo says in the human cycle. So he says we have moved into the age of convention, where the soul has withdrawn, because the soul is covered by all these conventional practices, and it's no more, the consciousness is no more in the act. So now the soul, he says, he talks of the age, he calls it now the subjective age, which we have entered. So the subjective age is that which everyone is again seeking for the truth in himself. And all the texts will help us for that. So there they still have their place. But everyone, that means, has his unique approach. I have developed my own approach with the Veda. It helps me with Sri Aurobindo, and my teacher did it, but we are not doing the same thing exactly. So I think that individually is allowed also, to find our own depths and our uniqueness also.
My question is maybe slightly more theoretical. So what he talks about is that we need to have a strong foundation, which is the Vedas of the past. And
he wouldn't say here the Veda of the past. He means all the any ancient synthesis, which here is the Gita. But he says, of course, like all of them have built on the earlier one.
does he so Sri Aurobindo also contributed to it through Savitri and a few others?
That is your personal question. When I was reading this, then I said, who was actually making that new synthesis? He did it already, actually. He accomplished it. He made a new synthesis, which is waiting for the world to take it up. But that synthesis is so free, that, as I say, everyone who practices the integral yoga goes his own path in one way. There are outlines, but each one is unique, and each one has different paths and developments. So there is vast room and freedom and space in that yoga, that's for sure. But you could say at the same time, I think he has given that new synthesis. He has commented on all the ancient texts, shown them in a deeper light than maybe which was shown in the last so many centuries. So he did this actually. So in that way, I must refer back to him. I said in the break, also in the morning. Also, without his comment on the Veda, I would not sit here. I was attracted to it, I was touched by it, but my entrance was, of course, to his translations, to his thought. And I still rely on that. So in that way, Aurobindo is a unique figure in that history of India and of the evolution, and still waits for his discovery, I think, in a bigger context. But many people also have taken it up, this vision of life. Because look, he has commented on the whole of life. In that way, he is for me that Rishi which Tagore saw him. He has the word, and he is this ancient Rishi who is not segregating himself from life. So the spirituality which is embracing life. So that's why he commented on all the ways of life, on education, on human culture, on art. So that is all part of this. This is for me, yes, the Rishi, I would say.
So here, when we're talking about the masculine materials flowing into
Yes.
he talks in that case. There's one where, and beyond that, the remote and latest past, which seems to be dead, is returning upon us.
Yes.
With an effulgence of many luminous secrets long lost in the consciousness of mankind. But now breaking out again from behind the wheel. What is this a reference to the Vedas or it's beyond the Vedas?
It might be even more than that, but it's definitely again the Veda also, right?
But if that, I mean, I'm just going back to that.
Yes.
If it is true that it all started with the, I mean, it somehow seems like, the beginning of it all began from that higher consciousness.
Yes.
And then the earth was formed. So if that is true,
Yes.
then this would actually be making a reference to what he brought back as,
Also in a
the
way,
other
but
levels
that
of
is the Vedic vision, because for the Veda the origin is always the past, so to say, and because their time sense is not linear and rational, it's a circle, no? So when they say before, they mean up there at the origin, where things are first revealed. That is that yoni, so to say, where everything is one. And we have to relive, manifest it here. And that oneness from there is supporting us all the time here. But you could say, in that way, it's always, so to say, also going back into the past. Look, these lines from Usha, the dawn. No? She's the last one from the previous one and the first for those who are coming, but they are not separate. No? So how the eternal unfolds in time, so to say, that's what is the avatar doing. No? Mother says, in the eternity of becoming, each avatar is the announcer, the forerunner of a more perfect future realization. So right. But you could still say it is that also. In that way, that's what the ancients all said, which is for our rational mind no more understandable, and we shouldn't make it into a dogma, because then what the rational mind does, if it thinks now I have something, it becomes dogmatic about it, exclusive. What I want to say, because the Vedic rishis say, they don't say we made the past, they said our father who were before us. They found the light, they found the past. And even Vishwamitra, he says, now I look back to the origins, I look back to the Purva, to the beginning, which is again, that is that higher consciousness, the light from which things have descended. So he says, I look back and I see these ways, and he wants to connect with it. The hymns are like that in the Rig Veda. Then, so the rishis say we are not the beginning of the tradition. Ancient Egypt, ancient Greece, ancient China, I'm always emphasizing this, none of the ancients say we are the moderns, we are the best, we are the top. All of the most ancient, universal, great traditions, they will say they were before, we had predecessors. We were not the founders. They always, even when you read the I Ching or Confucius or they will say, oh, in the ancient times where still there was the harmony. So all the world remains a kind of a golden age of the past. So now, of course, the question is, was it in heaven or on the earth?
Yeah.
Mother would say it was on the earth, but it was lived in a small circle, so to say, as if to show what will be realized later on. It was not possible for the whole evolution to emerge right away in that way, but there always had to be some human beings who already make that connection. So they built the bridge in their consciousness. So that is like the avatars. From the earth in a body, they are going back to the source and connecting with these planes, and they embody it. And then for the other man, because the bridge is built, they can connect with it also. So you can look at it in many ways.
So was it in Egypt that it was tried out? Advanced?
No, that question which was put in the Mother in the talks, he says, are the Vedic rishis doing what we are doing? She says, I think so. And she said, did they exist? She says, yes, it was there, but it was not even supposed to be fully realized because it was too early. She says it was to be shown what is possible. And she also says, I think it must have been a nucleus of people who were embodying this in a certain group. Of course, she talks of ancient Egypt, about that city of the pharaoh, of the sun worship, where you could say always on the earth a group of individuals is trying to embody that which is possible in the future. And why did she create Aurobindo? Because of that in the ashram. The city of dawn, which of course it sounds very ambitious and we can be very proud of it, but we can also be very disappointed of it because are we up to the mark? It is so difficult. But the demand is also, that perfection that will take time. It needs a big scaffolding. So So this is, in that way, yes, of course, Mother and Aurobindo and Aurobindo, and it's all relating, so to say, to the civilizations of the past and the cycles of the dawns of the past and the future. And we always know the problem is the rational mind in the modern age, most of us, we forget that we are building on the past. Even the music instrument which I'm playing, it is a model from the Baroque period, where even they had hardly any drilling machines. They made the most sophisticated flutes, and now people, what they do? They rebuild them from the museum in that way. They even like to play the music with the instruments and the skill of that time, because they feel it is even more lively than to use the modern instruments, metal and technique, a lot of mechanics. So they even do such things now. There's a big movement in Europe even to try to reconstruct what they did in the Baroque time, meaning what accomplishments were there already on Earth on which we are all building. When was the flute invented, the violin? The flute is already mentioned in the Rig Veda. I have a book on ancient fossils in southern Germany, like in southern France. Now they have these caves where the Neanderthal men, however you want to call them, all ancient men was dwelling, and they found made out of, a stork, it's a certain bird of the wing bone, a flute. 40,000 years old flute. 40,000. Stork bone.
Wow.
And this brings me also to one passage in the Veda, because in one hymn of Vamadeva, which is very profound hymn, but he uses this image of the bull with 4 horns, of the bull with 2 heads, and 3 feet and 7 arms. He calls the divine that bull, the Deva. And Sri Aurobindo tries to explain it, and he says, as if an imagery of this prehistoric times. You feel these are like the cave paintings in France and 30,000 years ago. They made such imagery, and the Veda still uses some of that imagery. So how all this the knowledge then, you could say. So it's amazing. But meaning, always if we go to the Veda, so to say, we go to the origin of the whole civilization on Earth. Yes. But to the Veda, we can understand that mind of the ancients, what you said, no? To go back means to go up, so to say, to the origin. It's not a blind belief in the past or tradition. It's something much more alive.
What's interesting is it's very optimistic of what's coming up next in the times we are in, right?
Right, from that point of view, totally. However, it
Because
looks...
there's a lot of fatalism there.
Right.
It's global warming. It's
Right, I agree.
Perish.
Yes.
There is this...
Right. And actually, that's what we need also, no? We need a vision of life which is not deficit and just put we are in a, Aurobindo of course says we are in a crisis. And that crisis evolutionary crisis, because the mind has reached its limits. And the mind has invented so many things, but a rational mind, which is segregating life, it's inventing beautiful things by destroying other things. And that has to be overcome. And that will be a new mind. That mind cannot solve it. So of course, for us, it's the question with the time. We will ask ourselves. It's a balancing. But that will be clear. The light will be growing and something will manage the things. But when we are more receptive, it will be more easy. Yes, but it's a good point what you made. That what you feel in the ancient mind was that you have that positive attitude, right?
So then I guess when you actually refer to the Vedas or even,
Yes.
spiritual entities or the Ramayana, it is all very positive. Of course, there are things that happen, but it's never
Yes.
not gloomy at all.
Yes, it's not gloomy. Right.
Very interestingly.
Right, even if they are the asuras and the enemy of the
Yeah, but
position
there is
and
chance
destruction.
also.
Yes.
The progress happens to each one of them.
Yes. In that way, of course, the Mahabharata, in that way, I find the Gita in that way more tough. And Sri Aurobindo even writes the chapter, no, where he says, time, the destroyer. And he says, for the Indian mind, this always had place also, that the divine has to be also the destroyer to create a free movement, which is very difficult for the Western mind to understand, to see the divine in that also. So that is very tough, also for us still in the Gita.
I think when you look at some figure as a destroyer, or even the concept of destruction,
Yes.
yeah, it can become difficult if you're looking at destruction as, dismantling something.
Right, as a negative
Whereas
thing.
when you actually, if I parallel it with Sri Aurobindo's references,
Yes.
then what you're destructing? You're just maybe, the shining more light into darkness of sorts.
Finally.
So,
Right. There is that aphorism where he says, whenever you see a great destruction, be sure of a great new building.
So destruction is the cycle.
Yes.
The cycle.
Right. But at the same time, also, no, it is not what you said, these doomsayers, because some of the, visionaries, they will just say everything is going down and it will be much destruction and chaos and many people will die. Mother Aurobindo never say that, because she says it doesn't have to be in such a gruesome way. If man is cooperating, it doesn't have to have all these catastrophes. There will be a way to solve it. And we are part of that. So even let's hope our positive motivation and thinking will even help that the smoothness, it will go smooth. That is also one other aspect what Sri Aurobindo also mentions, that even the outer side of the Veda, of the nature and manipulating nature, he says in all religions, why are we praying to the gods to protect us when we drive somewhere in the car? So we believe that the gods act also in the physical, in this reality, otherwise we wouldn't pray to them. So he says that is the outer side of the Veda, but that means he calls it the psychophysical aspect of the gods. So meaning that these divine beings which we seek in that higher planes, they also are present behind and they help us also and protect us. So he says this would be the external side of the Veda, so to say, that you invoke the gods in the cosmos which are latent behind everything. Because meaning even the physical world is guided by non-material powers. And that, of course, for the materialistic mind is not acceptable. This is all fairy tale. But so for the ancients, this was both, you see. So there were the powers in the cosmos around us. There were spirits in the trees and in the rivers, no? They were there, and in ancient Europe everywhere, they saw that, and they didn't invent that, I'm sure. They still had the perception of it. But still, this is one plane of existence. Like the planets are one plane of influence, but there is another plane beyond.